Arnold was just finishing a briefing with his staff when his mobile phone rang. His little daughter, Caroline, was crying on the other end. "Daddy, please don't be mad. I burned my hand and the new tablecloth. It wasn't on purpose. It hurts so much." Arnold jumped out of his chair, quickly dismissed everyone to their workstations, and rushed home. Along the way, he kept trying to call the nanny, but her phone was unreachable. Arnold fumed. What does she even get paid for? She doesn't watch the child at all. He burst into the mansion, and the frightened daughter ran to meet him with teary eyes and a bandaged finger. The windows in the kitchen were open, and the smell of smoke filled the air. Arnold grabbed the child, hugged her, and tried to calm her down. "Caroline, sweetheart, what happened to you? We're going to the hospital right away. Let the doctor check." "Barbara, where were you? Why is your phone unreachable? I might fire you today." The nanny began to apologize and explain. "Forgive me, Arnold. I stepped away for just a moment. I swear, it won't happen again. No need to go to the hospital. It's just a little redness." Caroline got scared. That's all. Who knew she'd decide to fry pancakes on her own? "You know how imaginative she is." Caroline chimed in. "I didn't mean to, Daddy. I just wanted to surprise you with pancakes and jam. I watched a recipe video online and tried to cook. The pan got too hot. I couldn't turn down the gas. Got a bit burned and put it on the tablecloth. Smoke started pouring out. I won't do it again. Just don't be mad." Arnold hugged his daughter, reassured her. "I was so scared for you, sweetheart. Please, don't go near the stove by yourself. When do school holidays end? I think I'll go crazy before then. Go, draw something, and I'll talk to Barbara." The girl ran off to her room, and Arnold sternly addressed the nanny. "Barbara, now tell me where you were at that moment. Why did I hire you? To take care of the child, not wander off." The woman pleaded again. "Please don't fire me. It's the last time." You see, Caroline was watching cartoons, and the manicurist called with an opening. "I only left for an hour. I'm sorry. It won't happen again," Arnold said firmly. "I'll install a camera in the house today, and if you try this again, I'll fire you on the spot. I'll deduct from your pay for today. Understand? I'll arrange for the driver to take you and Caroline to the hospital just in case. Keep an eye on her." He kissed his daughter, admonishing her. "I'm off to work. Be with Barbara, and no more improvisation. Okay, I'll order pizza for dinner. You're the most precious thing I have. Understand? I worry a lot about you." Caroline hugged her father and nodded. "Okay, Daddy, I'll be waiting for you. Come back soon." From her warm little hands emanated tenderness, and Arnold's heart melted, his anger dissipating. On his way to work, he began to reflect on his entire life. After university, Arnold ventured into business, dealing with the sale of car parts in different regions. Although his business was small, it was robust, with a main office and 2 branches. Initially, work consumed almost all his time, leaving no for personal life. However, everything changed when Arnold, at 30, fell deeply in love and decided to marry Leslie, his tall, leggy secretary. She quickly became his lawful wife and chief manager. Despite rumors among colleagues that Leslie might be cunning and with him for the money, Arnold dismissed them. They married and lived in the businessman's mansion. Initially, life was good, but as years passed, children did not come. Leslie wasn't bothered, enjoying their affluent lifestyle, but Arnold yearned to be a father. After a thorough examination, it was revealed that the problem lay with him due to a childhood bout of swine flu affecting his ability to have children. Distraught, Arnold initially suffered but then decided to adopt a child from an orphanage. Leslie was reluctant, suggesting they get a purebred dog instead, but Arnold persisted. Their home welcomed a blue-eyed, curly-haired wonder, 5-year-old Caroline. who had chosen them as her parents. Leslie, while putting on a smile, seemed uneasy, not fully grasping that this child would soon become a permanent part of their lives. The orphanage director warned Arnold and Leslie against adopting Caroline, hinting at a mysterious and possibly troubled background. Leslie, concerned, speculated on potential issues but received reassurance that it wasn't related to alcoholism. However, the director mentioned a dark story about Caroline's mother, and Leslie grew wary, pleading with her husband. Leslie suggested looking at other children, fearing potential problems with adopting Caroline. Arnold, however, remained adamant, having already promised to take Caroline. He couldn't betray the little girl who had reached out to them. "No, we are adopting Caroline. I've decided, and that's final. She chose us herself. I can't betray her. I've already promised to take her. How can you not love such a sweetheart with those big eyes? I'm already crazy about her. She'll grow up to be the most beautiful and happiest. I'll make sure of it." Leslie pursed her lips, offering no response. Arnold couldn't miss the unpleasant squint in her eyes. He knew that look his wife disapproved of his choice. Yet, he sincerely believed that Leslie would eventually grow to love Caroline and become a true mother to her. Unfortunately, that never happened. Leslie never bonded with the little girl. She tried to instruct, guide, and scold Caroline. When the child cried or threw tantrums, Leslie grimaced and harshly reprimanded her. "Enough of the whining. You're not a little kid anymore. Your father spoiled you. Why are you clinging to me? Go play. You have a room full of toys." Caroline responded in kind, crying even more and shouting, "You're mean. You don't love me. But Dad is kind. He's the best." The girl leaned towards Arnold, embracing him sincerely, whispering, "My beloved daddy is here. I've been waiting for you. Look what I drew for you." Arnold melted, patiently listening to all her joys and sorrows, enjoying playing and spending time with her. He took her to the circus, on amusement park rides, carried her on his shoulders, and felt immensely proud to be her father. However, the relationship between him and his wife deteriorated completely. Leslie seemed to lose her mind, becoming jealous of Arnold's affection for the little girl, who took away all his free time, demanding attention and love. Leslie, who used to receive jewelry and sweet words exclusively, either tried to ignore the child or openly scolded her. Maternal instincts never awakened in Leslie. Unfortunately, it was during this time that Leslie found a lover. She changed, started disappearing in the evenings, came back happy and content, lying about being with friends or an old acquaintance. Her home had become unbearably dull and uninteresting. Frustrated with Caroline's antics, she grew irritated. Arnold was no longer the prince. He talked about nothing but Caroline. The couple grew apart, and Arnold, engrossed in work and Caroline, tried to reason with Leslie. However, she appeared at home less and less. Eventually, it culminated in Leslie packing her bags and leaving for her lover. She left only a note on the refrigerator. "I can't take it anymore, Arnold. I deserve better. I'll file for divorce myself." Arnold struggled with their breakup. He had loved Leslie deeply and believed that things would work out. Her betrayal shook him, and if it weren't for his daughter, it's unclear how he would have coped. But his love for Caroline gave him the strength to keep going. He couldn't afford to give up and sink into despair. He lived for his daughter, having lost faith in love. The little girl was briefly sad after Leslie's departure, but she quickly recovered. She still loved her father unconditionally. 2 years quietly passed. The daughter, now 8 and in 2nd grade, thrived, but Arnold remained alone. Many women admired Arnold and even took the initiative to get to know him better, but he rejected all attempts. He didn't want anyone hurting Caroline again. He vividly remembered his ex-wife's disapproving face and her dissatisfaction with the girl. Finding a suitable nanny proved challenging. None seemed to fit well into their family. The latest one, Barbara had become too audacious and crossed the line today by leaving his daughter alone to get a manicure. Fortunately, the school break was ending in a couple of days, and Caroline would go back to school, bringing relief to Arnold. Yet, he still often sifted through new candidates, hoping to find a responsible and kind nanny who would make Caroline happy. Recently, a young girl joined his company for work. The job was not great, cleaning staff with a modest salary. Few applied, but this sad, charming girl pleaded to be hired. "Please, take me. I desperately need this job. I'm willing to clean without rest. My situation is hopeless. I'm pregnant, and circumstances have left me alone with no one to turn to." The deputy grimaced. "Why do we need this? You'll last at most 6 months, then go on maternity leave, and we'll have to pay you. More trouble than benefit. Personally, I'm against it." The girl looked hopefully at Arnold. Tears filled her beautiful sad eyes, and he relented. "Okay, I'll take you, but you must work diligently. No skipping. Let's have your documents, Valerie, and we'll start the paperwork." Valerie was overjoyed, thanking the director and promising to work conscientiously. A couple of months passed, and the new cleaning lady did indeed try her best. There were no complaints, though the staff didn't warm up to her. Office ladies looked down on the poor cleaner, an orphan, living in a run-down room without repairs, old clothes, and a child. They nicknamed her Sunflower for her red hair and freckles, laughing behind her back. Valerie felt the animosity but endured it. She had no choice. She rarely spoke to anyone, answering questions reluctantly. One day, on Arnold's day off, he decided to take his daughter for a walk. They strolled in the park, basking in the last rays of the autumn sun. Old trees were adorned with colorful red and orange leaves. Caroline ran around, enjoying herself, and fed the pigeons. She gathered leaves, creating a beautiful multicolored bouquet. Then, she took a ribbon from her backpack and tied an intricate knot, surprising even her father. "Daddy, look at this beauty. Where did you learn to tie such knots? I've never seen anything like it. Did they teach you this at school?" Caroline shook her head. "No, not at school. It's a secret." As the girl looked around, she noticed a young pregnant woman nearby. Though her belly was small, it was noticeable through her thin blouse. Caroline took the bouquet and ran up to her. "Take this. It's for you, just to lift your spirits. You look so sad sitting there." Arnold examined her closely. It was the same sad cleaner. He waved to her in greeting. Valerie was genuinely delighted to meet them, and she liked the bouquet. She thanked the girl. "Oh, what beauty. Thank you, sweetie. What's your name?" The little girl beamed. She loved talking to people. "My name is Caroline. And what's yours?" The woman was about to respond when she noticed a knot on the bouquet. Suddenly, she recoiled, turning pale. Arnold became genuinely concerned. "Valerie, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell?" Your face turned completely white. "Should I call an ambulance?" Shaking her head, the woman regained composure and jumped up from the bench. No, everything is fine. No need for an ambulance. I'm sorry. I have to go. Can I take the bouquet? I need to leave." And she hurried away without looking back. Arnold couldn't understand her strange reaction. It seemed there was some truth to the rumors about her being peculiar. He and his daughter were ready to head home and almost forgot about the incident. However, a few days later, someone knocked on the door of his office. "Excuse me. May I come in?" Arnold was very surprised to see Valerie. She sat down and began hesitantly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but your daughter's bouquet has been haunting me for 3 days now. I can't sleep. Can you tell me who taught her to tie such a knot? It's crucial for me. You see, only one person knew how to weave like that, my sister, Gabriel. Perhaps you know something about her. We were separated in childhood. You understand? I know nothing about her, and she's the only relative I have. We're orphans together. Please, Tell me everything you know. Suddenly, Arnold remembered where he heard that name. He slapped his forehead. Right, Gabriel. That's the name of Caroline's biological mother. It's even recorded in the adoption certificate. I adopted Caroline from the orphanage when she was 5. The orphanage didn't tell me much about Caroline's mother, either she passed away or she gave up Caroline. I wasn't interested. I gave the girl my last name, and she's my truly beloved daughter. But wait, if you're Caroline's biological mother's sister, then my daughter is not a stranger to you. She's your niece. Although such a coincidence is hard to believe, it's unbelievable. Tell me more about yourself and how you got separated from your sister. Maybe I can help you find her if she's alive. Of course, Valerie sighed heavily and began her sad story. We had an ordinary family, just like everyone else. Our parents were teachers, working at a school. We lived modestly, but not in poverty. Mom was strict, but we adored our dad. My sister is only 2 years older than me. One day, tragedy struck. Our parents went to the summer house, and I stayed home with my sister because I was sick. Usually, we all went together, but that day they didn't come back. There was a fire at home, and they suffocated. Such a bizarre and senseless death. Gabriel and I ended up in an orphanage. She was 10, and I was 8. Then the nightmare began. We were completely unprepared for survival. I still shudder when I remember the stern voice of the chubby nanny, Anastasia, and her shout, "This is now your locker. Put your things there and go to the children's area." And I stood there, stubbornly insisting, "No, I won't go. I'll wait for my sister." During that time, Gabriel was still undergoing a medical examination. That chubby woman grabbed me by the sleeve, nearly breaking my arm, and forcibly dragged me to the children's area. I was instantly labeled a crybaby, and if it weren't for my sister, I probably wouldn't have survived those initial days. Gabriel was always more spirited and brave. She could even fight with boys. Meanwhile, I was always crying and trembling. We spent 2 years together in the orphanage. She protected me, fed me, and pleaded, "Hold on, Valerie, and don't cry. We need to be strong. Soon, I'll become an adult, work, and will leave this place forever. Just endure. I'm right here. I won't let anyone hurt you." And I endured. Ate tasteless food. Stayed silent when the nasty nanny Anastasia mistreated me. Only my sister's care saved me. Gabriel and I loved crawling under the same blanket at night, whispering about our dreams of a happy life when we grew up, getting married, having 3 kids, and never being apart. Gabriel also loved to weave and knot intricate designs, dabbled in macrame, finding solace in these activities. I never learned, but I happily wore ribbons with her weavings in my hair. However, fate had other plans for our dreams of a blissful life. One day, potential adopters came to the orphanage, a regular couple, already in their later years. They didn't want a young child. Instead, they were looking for an older one, perhaps fearing they wouldn't have time to raise a younger child. Gabriel caught their eye, and they began talking to her. My sister immediately said she wouldn't go to an adoptive family without me, and the director assured us that sisters weren't supposed to be separated. The woman's name was Janet, a name I would remember for life. She told us they would adopt both of us, but not simultaneously. Gabriel first, and a few months later, me. It seemed they hadn't prepared a child's room for 2 yet. Time was needed. Janet played with me and seemed so kind. My sister and I believed that we were finally escaping this hell. Gabriel was adopted, and we cried and hugged for a long time. I felt nauseous in my soul. I couldn't imagine surviving even a day without her in that place. But she comforted me. "Don't cry. Soon we'll be together again. Endure a little. I'll come back for you. I promise." My new mom assured me that they would take both of us into the family. The director also confirmed it. She said they were preparing documents for you too. I nodded, agreed, and believed fervently that Gabriel would return for me. However, as weeks passed and no one came for me, I became extremely anxious. I would sit on the windowsill for hours, trying to spot my sister or Janet among the passers-by. Then that chubby Anastasia confronted me, abruptly pulling me away from the window, shouting, "You'll soon drill a hole in the window with your eyes. Why are you still standing there, naive fool? Haven't you realized that no one will take you anywhere? Accept it. Go and occupy yourself. Don't disturb the adults." I then rushed at her with my fists, screaming until I was hoarse, "You're all lying. Gabriel couldn't abandon me. She promised she'd come back. And Janet promised. I won't go anywhere, and I'll sit here until they come for me. Don't put on a show for me. Behave like everyone else, and sit quietly. Otherwise, I'll punish you. Spend a night in the storeroom, and you'll talk differently. Be glad the state takes care of people like you." That's how they broke me. I became like a shadow, avoiding unnecessary words, not asking for anything, just patiently waiting for the day I would turn 18 and finally leave the detestable orphanage. I resented my sister and Janet, considering them traitors. And it seemed to me that beyond those gloomy walls, an interesting, real life flowed. I just didn't realize that I wasn't ready for it at all. We were raised like in a camp, everything on a schedule, and nasty adults decided everything for us. But no one taught us how to survive out there, in the real world, how to become independent, how to adapt, how to love this world at all. After graduation, I was given a rundown room. The windows were shattered, a constant draft blew in. Wallpaper hung in tatters from the ceiling overall. A nightmare. And the neighbors were no better. Alcoholic Harry and a large family. A perpetual queue for the bathroom. That's how I live. I tried to find a job, but who would take me without education? I barely got hired at a car wash, and that was unofficial. But I was grateful. Tried my best. Didn't slack off. I attempted to find my sister but couldn't. The orphanage didn't provide me with any contacts, no matter how much I begged. I went to our childhood home, but another family has been living there for a long time. I have no idea who sold it and how. And 3 days ago, when I saw that knot, I nearly fainted. Gabriel immediately came to mind, and I cried for a long time at home. That's why I decided to come to you. I hope we can find my sister. Arnold shook his head, genuinely sorry for Valerie, and decided to ask her about the most critical thing. "I apologize for intruding, but you're pregnant. And where is the child's father?" The girl immediately paled. Her hands trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes again. "He's a scoundrel. I met Edgar at the car wash. From the first days, he started courting me, making jokes, giving compliments. Then he began giving flowers, escorting me home. He said he fell in love, couldn't live without me. Well, I'm a naive fool. Believed him, couldn't resist. We dated for 6 months, and I moved in with Edgar, thinking we'd get married soon. But then I got pregnant, and that's when it all started. Edgar shouted at me as if I were guilty of something, gave me money, and ordered me to get an abortion. But I couldn't. How could I live with that afterward? I didn't understand why my fiancé was so aggressive, why he didn't want children. Until his wife came to the car wash 3 days ago and created a wild scandal. She grabbed my hair, called me the worst names, yelled that I invaded their family and destroyed it. I didn't understand. I didn't even know that Edgar was married. It turned out he had been living a double life, living with his family and fooling around with me just for fun. He secretly rented an apartment for these purposes, and he has a child. That's why he got so enraged when he learned about my pregnancy. After the scandal at the car wash, I was, of course, fired, and now I'm completely alone, pregnant and jobless. I decided to erase that scoundrel from my life, and I'll raise my son alone. Arnold tried to comfort the distraught woman. It's not as bad as it seems. You don't even realize your happiness. I would give anything to have a child. I adore Caroline. Believe me, children are the most significant happiness. I'll help you find your sister. Although I admit I'm very afraid of this. You understand? If I find her and she wants to take Caroline, I won't give up my daughter for anything, Valerie exclaimed. I don't know what happened back then in childhood, but I'm sure Gabriel would have returned for me. She always pitied and loved me. And I really want to find her, learn the whole truth. I can't believe that Gabriel willingly sent her own daughter to the orphanage. She's not that kind of person. Maybe it's some mistake. Suddenly, a thought struck Arnold, and he suggested, I know how to check this. Will you agree to a DNA test with Caroline? That way, we'll find out if you're relatives or not. The knot itself doesn't necessarily mean anything. It could be just a coincidence. The woman agreed. She had nothing to lose and handed over a couple of hair strands for analysis. A week later, the result shocked everyone. It was all true, and Valerie turned out to be Caroline's biological aunt. The young woman cried, "How happy I am. So, I'm not alone, and Caroline is indeed Gabriel's daughter. I would never have believed it if someone had told me. But then where is Gabriel? How can I find out everything? Allow me to meet my niece. She's such a lovely girl. I'm sure we'll become friends." Arnold was also very pleased and said, "I have another proposal, Valerie. I can see how hard it is for you to work here. How uncomfortable. Would you like to be Caroline's nanny? My current nanny is quite useless. My daughter doesn't get along with her. You can live with me. There are plenty of free rooms. You learn money, and you'll get closer to your niece. What do you think of my idea?" Valerie immediately nodded. "Thank you, Arnold. I agree with pleasure. I love children very much. I won't let you down. I can't believe all of this is happening to me." When rumors spread around the company that the new cleaner would now be working for the boss, employees immediately started gossiping. Just look at our orphan. She managed to infiltrate the director's house. Arnold paid no attention to these gossips, and now Valerie lived and worked in his house. Caroline immediately got along with her. There were no more arguments or conflicts. They peacefully played, drew, and went for walks together. One day, just as Arnold arrived home, he saw his daughter teaching Valerie how to tie that same knot. Both were so engrossed that they didn't notice him at first. He sighed and decided to cautiously ask his daughter again, "Caroline, do you remember who taught you to tie such a beautiful knot? Valerie is trying so hard, but it doesn't come out as nicely as yours." The little girl suddenly replied quietly, "Mom taught me, a long time ago when I was little. She also used to braid beautiful braids with colorful ribbons inserted. No one else knows how to do that." Valerie turned pale and continued, "And then, what happened to your mom? How did you end up in the orphanage? Do you remember anything?" Caroline sadly answered, "I remember my mom a little. She was kind and very beautiful, but she disappeared somewhere. I waited for her and cried. And my stepfather is bad and angry. He scolded me and shouted all the time, and I was scared, cried, and hid under the bed. And then some aunts came, and they took me to the orphanage. And from there, my daddy took me, and I became the happiest." Arnold was amazed. His daughter had never told him anything about her previous life, and now she suddenly shared everything openly with Valerie. It meant she trusted her completely. The man decided to find Caroline's mother, not for himself, but for Valerie. He saw how hard it was for her, how she longed to embrace her dear one, how she leaned towards the little girl. With what tenderness she looked at her and stroked her head. Through acquaintances, he learned the address of the shelter where Caroline and Gabriel once lived and went there. The other family that had bought the apartment long ago knew the stepfather well and even roughly explained where he lived. It was an old house. The man rang the doorbell for a long time until an unpleasant alcoholic finally opened it. "Who are you? And what do you want? Arnold first tried to communicate politely. Good day. You used to live with Gabriel and her daughter Caroline. I need to know where she disappeared and why the girl was taken to the orphanage. I didn't understand. Who are you anyway? Why should I tell you anything? Get out of here. Arnold understood. This was probably Caroline's stepfather. His hands were shaking badly, and he urgently needed a drink. So, he went downstairs and bought 2 bottles of alcohol from the nearest store, then rang the doorbell again. The irritated owner immediately confronted him. Didn't I make it clear that bothering me is not worth it? Arnold showed the booze with some snacks and asked again, what about now? Will you spare me some time? The man immediately perked up and changed his tone. Well, that's a different story. Come in, buddy. The shot glasses are there on the table. Pour it. Let's talk. Arnold laid out the snacks on the table, poured alcohol into the shot glasses, and the stepfather began to talk. I'm called Carl, and yes, I used to live with Gabriel. She had a girl. I don't know who the father is. She never told, but Gabriel has been in prison for 3 years now, and she'll be there for a long time. They gave her 8 years. It seems they found an interesting package on her, and that's it. They took her away. Arnold couldn't believe it. Gabriel, a drug addict. Did she use it herself or sell it? Nikolai waved his hands. No. Are you crazy? I wouldn't get involved with such a girl. Some dark story happened there. Gabriel worked as a maid in a rich house. She had a conflict with the owner, and he probably set her up. They found a package in the pocket of her coat. But it's all nonsense. What normal person would carry such things in the pocket of their coat? Caroline, her daughter, was 3 years old then. Well, what was I to do with a little kid? Especially someone else's. She cried for days, and I didn't know what to do with her. I often lost my temper and shouted at her too. So, neighbors called the police and child protective services, and they took the girl away. I was even relieved. Other people's kids are not my concern. That's the whole story. Well, shall we drink? Arnold shook his head negatively and hurriedly left that place. Now he was feverishly thinking about how to find the prison where Gabriel was serving her sentence. He decided to use his friend's help, and when he learned everything, he made the decision to go and personally meet Caroline's mother. It was difficult for him. Arnold loved his little daughter so much and didn't know how the woman would react to the fact that he adopted her. What if she wanted to take her daughter back when she got out of prison? All these doubts tormented the man, yet knowing the truth and helping Valerie were equally important to him. And he decided to take the risk. Pretending to go on a business trip, he gave instructions to Valerie. I'll be away for just a couple of days. For work, urgent business to handle. Follow Caroline's daily schedule. It's hanging in the kitchen. I'll call frequently. Here's the card for food and other expenses. Caroline, sweetheart, please listen to Valerie in everything and don't misbehave in my absence. All right, I'll be back soon, bringing you some gifts. Okay, sweetheart, come here. I'll give you a kiss. Throughout the journey, Arnold was anxious and nervous, envisioning the upcoming meeting with Gabriel. He wondered if Caroline resembled her. What should he say to her? Where should he start? How would she react? He also worried about whether Valerie could manage at home without him. She was pregnant herself, and now, with a little schoolgirl under her care, there would be chores and responsibilities all day. Moreover, he had never left Caroline alone for such a long time, and he was deeply concerned. However, soon his worry turned into shock. Gabriel had died a month ago from lung inflammation in the prison hospital. Arnold was deeply saddened and asked the prison warden, "Tell me, do you think Gabriel really dealt drugs? Was her imprisonment justified?" The stern elderly man replied, "It's hard to say. They all claim to be innocent, that they were framed, every single one of them. I've seen a lot of these cases in my life, But I can say one thing, she's definitely not a drug addict, let alone a dealer. It seems she angered someone, unfortunately, and such things happen. It was hard for her here. She became quiet, withdrawn, cried all the time. She was in the hospital a couple of times, often sick. She turned into an old woman in these 3 years and, unfortunately, passed away. So, I can't help you. I'm sorry. If you want, you can take her personal belongings, but there's nothing significant. Just a lady's purse, some notebook. No money or valuables. Arnold immediately nodded. Yes, I'll take them. I think her sister will appreciate it. It's a part of Gabriel, her past. On the way home in the train, Arnold contemplated whether to tell Valerie the dreadful truth, that her sister was no more. She was pregnant, and he feared she would cry and be distressed. On the other hand, she also hoped to meet Gabriel, tormenting herself with the anticipation. Yet, she had the right to know the truth. Arnold was tired from the journey but hadn't forgotten to buy gifts for everyone. A new bead set for his daughter and lovely pearl necklaces for Valerie, just to bring some joy. He quietly entered the house, filled with the aroma of delicious baking. He went to the kitchen, where the girls were happily making buns, chatting about everything. Arnold even admired the scene. It was so endearing. Valerie blushed, her unruly locks falling out, and her eyes, probably for the first time, weren't sad. They sparkled with cheerful lights. Something in the man's soul was touched, and involuntarily, he started to dreamily smile. If only I had such a wife. Kind, decent, a good housekeeper, and Caroline wouldn't be a stranger to her. But alas, it's just a dream. Caroline saw her father first and rushed to him with a squeal. Daddy, my beloved daddy is back, and we are baking buns for you, with apples. How I missed you. She wrapped her warm little hands around his neck and hugged him, and Arnold melted with happiness. This was his beloved little daughter, only his. He couldn't bring himself to tell the girl the truth about her mother's death. She was too young for that. But later in the evening, when Caroline was sound asleep, he called Valerie into the kitchen and handed her a bag, saying, "Valerie, I wasn't on a business trip. I went to the prison, wanted to see Gabriel and find out everything. Here, these are her personal things. I specifically brought them for you, as a memento. It's her clothes and purse. I don't know what's in there. I haven't opened it." Valerie jumped on her chair and asked hopefully, "Please, don't torture me. What happened to Gabriel? Did you see her? How is she? Why were her things given away? What about her? When will she be released? And how will she go home? I don't understand anything." Arnold took a deep breath and quietly said, "Her things won't be of use anymore. Gabriel died from lung inflammation." Valerie blinked frequently, as if digesting what she heard, and then burst into tears. A real fit of hysteria overcame her. She said, "Gabriel, sister, how can this be? I spent so many years dreaming of finding you. I felt closer to the goal than ever. And now you are gone. What about Caroline? She'll never see her mommy again. Poor little girl. And what about me? I've struggled since childhood, unwanted by anyone, and you were the only one I had." Arnold was startled, lost, and didn't know how to calm her down. He suggested drinking water, but Valerie seemed not to hear him at all. Suddenly, she clutched her stomach, writhing in pain, started losing consciousness, and collapsed to the floor. Arnold immediately called an ambulance, moved Valerie to the bed, and waved a towel over her. He didn't understand how to help her. When a pool of blood appeared beneath her, he almost lost consciousness himself. He cursed himself with the last words, "I'm a fool. Why did I tell her everything about her sister? What if Valerie loses the baby? I'll never forgive myself. Where is the ambulance team? Why is it taking so long?" Finally, the medics arrived and swiftly took Valerie to the hospital. Arnold urgently called the nanny. Barbara promised to pay her double to look after Caroline and rushed to the maternity ward. Just in case help was needed, he stormed the reception area, demanding information about Valerie. He offered any amount of money or to buy medicines if necessary, behaving as if he had gone completely mad. Arnold hadn't expected to be so overwhelmed. Suddenly, he realized that Valerie mattered to him, not just as a person but as a woman. He felt a strong attraction to her. He knew it was utter madness, but when he saw her big sad eyes and her gentle, affectionate smile, he seemed to forget everything. He wanted to embrace her, console her, be there to protect her from troubles. In the early morning, the doctor finally came out and delivered good news. "You're lucky, Dad. Your wife almost lost the baby. There was a severe bleeding we could barely stop. It's a miracle, honestly. We almost gave up hope. Everything is stabilized now. We're preserving the pregnancy, but Valerie will need to stay with us for another 3 weeks, probably for observation and treatment. And no stress, I beg you. Only positive emotions." Arnold wanted to object that he wasn't her husband, but for some reason, he stayed silent. Moreover, he even felt pleased that they mistook him for the father of the child. The man shook the doctor's hand. "Thank you for saving both mother and baby, from the bottom of my heart. When can I visit Valerie? What should I bring? Maybe some medicines are needed. I'll buy everything immediately. Just tell me," the doctor replied seriously. "I'll write you a list. Come tomorrow during visiting hours. And now, go home. They won't let you see her anyway. Don't worry, everything will normalize now." The next day, after work, Arnold visited Valerie, bringing a bag full of treats, fruits, and a bouquet of flowers to lift her spirits. He timidly entered the room. Valerie lay under the blanket, as pale as a sheet. She saw Arnold and managed a strained smile, waving at him with her free hand. The other was under the foredrip. "Hello, Arnold. Thank you for coming to check on me. I'm sorry I scared you so much. Oh, those beautiful flowers. Are they for me?" she asked. Arnold smiled and replied, "Hi, Valerie. They mistook me for your husband yesterday, and I didn't object. It even felt kind of nice. I've been cursing myself for telling you everything. I should have realized you're in no condition to handle the stress." Tears welled up in Valerie's eyes again, dropping onto the pillow. She said, "Yes, I'm really upset that Gabriel died, and I'll never see my dear sister again. What will happen when the baby is born? How will I raise him alone? I can't even imagine." Arnold tentatively took her hand and whispered, "Don't speak like that, and don't cry anymore. You shouldn't. Do you hear me? Just think about the baby and take care of yourself. I'll be the one feeding you now. I bought pizza, still hot. Come on, open up. You need to eat. You look so pale." Valerie rallied. Her eyes lit up, and she ate with gusto, thanking Arnold for everything. "How delicious. Thank you, Arnold, for the flowers and for taking care of me. I'd be lost without you. It's quite a hassle for you. I feel so uncomfortable. I've burdened you with my problems." The man responded decisively. "I never want to hear that word again. You are not a stranger. You are Caroline's aunt, firstly. Secondly, I really like you. Finally, I said it. It feels lighter now. And thirdly, I will always be there for you. Got it? We'll come tomorrow with Caroline. Wait for us and get well." Valerie couldn't believe her luck and quietly said, "I'll be eagerly waiting for you. I've never met men like you. I've lost faith in people, especially after my fiancé betrayed me. But you are different. You're the kindest, the most reliable, and I really like you too. But, you understand, we can't be together. Why would you want a child from another man?" Arnold evasively replied, "Valerie, don't dwell on the negative. Please. Just know you are not alone. We'll come tomorrow with Caroline." After the man left her room, A nurse entered, removed the foredrip, and said, "You're lucky with your husband, Valerie. It's evident that he loves and cares for you. Such things are rare these days." Valerie blushed but felt pleased that Arnold was genuinely concerned for her. She thought sadly, "Once in a lifetime, I meet the man of my dreams, and yet fate doesn't allow us to be together." From that day on, Arnold and Caroline visited Valerie regularly. The little girl gave her drawings and her favorite bracelets, asking about the baby and Valerie's well-being. During this time, the young people grew close. They talked a lot, and both felt drawn to each other. Being together felt natural and calm. They didn't want to part. Arnold kept away the bag with Gabriel's things to spare Valerie from additional distress. He tried to distract her from negative thoughts, surrounding her with care and attention. However, he didn't abandon his investigation. He desperately wanted to know the truth. Who framed Gabriel and why? He discovered that Gabriel had worked in the household of the same scoundrel, the shadowy businessman his ex-wife had left him for. Arnold was convinced that this man could have framed Gabriel. He went further and investigated all the household staff who had worked there for a long time. The elderly cook, Ariel, seemed promising. Arnold met with her, persuading her to share everything, even though she initially resisted, fearing for her job. "No, I don't know anything, and even if I did, I wouldn't say. They pay me well, and if I make a mistake, I'll be out of here in an instant. The owner is too strict." I remember Gabriel. She was a good girl, hard-working, and we got along. Ariel initially protested. Arnold couldn't contain himself and shouted, "How can you not understand that you're covering up a scoundrel who put an innocent girl in prison, and she died there? Do you understand? I can't comprehend what she could have done to him. Why did he treat her like that? Could you really not know anything?" Ariel remained silent for a long time, pondering, weighing everything, and then replied, "Okay, I'll tell you everything, but in secret and only out of respect for you. And I won't testify. Keep that in mind." Gabriel told us that she had a daughter, Caroline, whom she loved dearly. She lived for her. Then I accidentally saw a few times how the owner and Gabriel were embracing. I'm sure they had a long-standing affair. Later, I overheard fragments of a quarrel. David yelled loudly, "Are you stupid? Trying to blackmail me with a child? Who asked you to give birth? I gave you money, told you to have an abortion. And what did you do? Mark my words, I'll never acknowledge the child. I don't need this baby. And I'll make your life miserable for opening your mouth." Well, after that scandal, Gabriel was not herself, and soon they found those drugs on her. But I know for sure that Gabriel is not a drug addict. She was a good girl. Oh, poor thing. She had such a tough fate. Arnold was furious. What a scoundrel. He disowned his own child and threw the mother into prison. How can such villains exist? And there's nothing we can do. No evidence. Will he really remain free, escaping all his dark dealings? It's so unfair. So, this is Caroline's father. I'll never tell her anything. She's my daughter, my dearest, and that's how it will always be. Time passed, and Valerie safely delivered a rosy-cheeked baby boy. Arnold prepared thoroughly for the discharge, buying balloons, flowers, candies, and champagne, and came with Caroline. Valerie was in shock when she saw how they ceremoniously greeted her. She even shed a tear. And when Arnold took the baby in his arms and said gently, "Well, hello, my little one. What shall we name you? And who's frowning at Daddy?" Caroline immediately chimed in. "Hooray! Now I have a little brother. Let's name him Franklin. I really like that name." Valerie was in complete shock and even momentarily bewildered. "What did you say? Mine, Daddy? Did I mishear?" Arnold solemnly handed her a box with a ring. "No, Valerie, you didn't mishear. Caroline and I talked, And we're not against you becoming my wife and Caroline's mom. And Franklin, my little son, will be a big, happy family. What do you think? I believe it will work out for us. Valerie almost jumped for joy. I agree. It's unbelievable. Not long ago, I was a lonely orphan that nobody needed, and pregnant at that. I was desperate, and life seemed unbearable. And now, I'm the happiest woman in the world. I want to shout to the whole world how much I love you. Arnold hugged her gently and said, "Well, family, shall we go home? We've set up a great feast with Caroline. We need to celebrate this moment." The family life of our heroes didn't become ideal right away. Initially, it was very challenging. Raising 2 children is hard work, but patience, respect for each other, mutual love bore fruit. A year later, Valerie and Arnold understood each other almost without words. One day, Arnold received a call from the security guard and was informed, "Your ex-wife Leslie is here, insisting on seeing you. She says it's urgent." Arnold was puzzled about what Leslie could want. He found it intriguing and instructed to let the woman in. She entered the office confidently, took a seat, and said, "Well, hello, Arnold. It's been a while. I even missed you. How are you? How's the new family? Heard you married the janitor." Arnold frowned. "Get to the point, Leslie. I'm not here to discuss my personal life with you." She changed her tone and tried to flatter. "I have something important to discuss with you. You see, David's in trouble. The tax authorities busted his company, found some financial manipulations, and now he's in prison. Can you imagine? I'm left with nothing to survive on. Hire me again. I was a decent manager, you remember." Arnold was taken aback by her audacity and decided to play a trick on her. "I'm sorry, but your position has long been filled. However, I can offer you a job as a janitor, replacing Valerie. That position is currently vacant. Well, what do you say? You need money, right?" Leslie jumped up and started shouting, "This is outrageous. No, I deserve better. Although why am I surprised? You always had a soft spot for poor orphans. It must be in your blood." Arnold laughed in her face. "Valerie is no longer a poor orphan or a janitor. She is my lawful wife. Doesn't the vacancy suit you? Well, sorry, I can't offer anything more. All the best." Feeling offended and humiliated, Leslie left. She now deeply regretted exchanging a strong family and a loving husband for that egotistical David. Arnold came home and told Valerie everything about who framed Gabriel, about Leslie, and how fate itself punished the scoundrels. In the end, he added, "I don't feel sorry for David or Leslie at all. They deserved all of it. They've caused so much harm to people and ruined so many lives. Now let them try what it feels like to be betrayed. David will fully experience prison life. Let's forget about them. I'm so glad you're with me, Valerie. I love you more than life, and our children too." He gently kissed his wife, and she embraced him. Both understood that fate had brought them together, as their hearts beat in unison, and their souls harmonized hand in hand through a lifetime.
"All right, everyone's presentations are done," Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? "I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hope to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.